Hey guys, I'm Richard Neowin, and today we're unboxing the Lenovo ThinkPad X1 Nano. So that is the newest member of the ThinkPad X1 family. So X1 is the premium, it's a premium business PC, right? I remember back when it was just the Carbon, the Yoga, and the tablet. Then they stopped making the tablet. They added the Extreme. The Extreme obviously has dedicated graphics, 45-watt processor, stuff like that. And then they started expanding some more. We have the X1 Fold now the X1 Nano. The interesting thing about the X1 Nano is this thing weighs 1.99 pounds, right? So obviously they were going for under 2 pounds, and that's what they hit. Now, 907 grams. It's made of a carbon fiber hybrid material. The strange thing to me is that to me is what the X1 Carbon used to be. The whole point of the X1 Carbon was that it was super light. Well, that one's 2.4 pounds. So like you had the Yoga and you had the Carbon side by side, and I used to ask them a lot, like, why would I buy the Carbon? You know, because they're very similar PCs, except the Yoga has a convertible hinge, but the Yoga is also heavier. It comes in at just under 3 pounds. So the whole selling point of the X1 Carbon has always been that it's the lightest business laptop around. So now they're going even lighter at 1.99 pounds. Now, one thing is different though this time around. This has a 13-inch display, where the Carbon does have a 14-inch display. It's 16 by 10. It's the first ThinkPad to have that aspect ratio. And I thought that was going to be one of the key value propositions of this. But then it turned out that the whole rest of the lineup was going 16 by 10 anyway. So, you know, that's what the box even feels super light. It's wild. Yeah, so like I said, it's a carbon fiber hybrid. It's meant to be tough, like all ThinkPads are. You know, it passes those mil-spec tests, over a dozen tests that Lenovo does on all ThinkPads. It's so wildly light. So, laptops that are under 2 pounds are pretty rare. Like, we've seen it, actually under 2 pounds, like the very, very low 2 pounds, we've seen like the LG Gram hit that like 2.1 pound, 2.2 pound mark. Under 2 pounds, I've seen the Acer Swift 7, but the Acer Swift 7 had an Intel Y series processor, so while it was super thin and light, it did not have the power to back that up. I don't know specifically what version of 11th gen processor this has in it, so that could make a big difference. If this is not the what was formerly called the U series, that would make a big difference. Well, I'd be totally interested in testing it because they made some big improvements to that. I don't think Ice Lake Y ever shipped. That was going to be really interesting. I've only seen Comet Lake Y for 10th gen, so 11th gen would be more interesting. But the reviewer's guide does not say exactly what kind of Core i7 is in here. It does have Iris Xe graphics. Let's see, for ports, we do have 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports, which is awesome. I'm working on a project right now. We got a 65-watt charger in the box. That's nice. But I'm working on a project right now where I'm actually looking at Apple's Apple Silicon Mac and Intel Evo, and just like the differences between the two platforms, and you know, what works, what doesn't work. And the thing about Intel products is that everything works. It's you know, the whole ecosystem, PC, Mac, everything, it's built for Intel. And it will be for some time to come. And when I say built for Intel, I don't mean that Intel is the only thing that works, but I do mean that Intel is the only thing that you know works, because that's what this whole industry is built on. All right, so this is it. Right, now you notice it has that ThinkPad X1 logo. This ThinkPad X1 logo is fairly new. They switched to this black glossy one a few years ago, and they added that X1 logo over here. And eventually, I believe just last year, they moved the X1 logo from this corner up to here. They changed the branding a little bit because that Lenovo logo is back. That used to be there before they even had an X1 logo. So I guess they changed the branding a little bit. This one is black. The other flavor that it comes in is carbon fiber weave. That's something that we're seeing on the premium ThinkPads in general. Okay. Pretty standard ThinkPad keyboard, although it does feel like it's not quite as shallow. I mean, not quite as deep as we've seen from other ThinkPads, which is awesome because I really feel like ThinkPads in general are kind of glued to legacy, and there's certain things that Lenovo is just scared to do with this product. Right, I turned it on. Power buttons on this side, by the way. And by the way, that's probably another reason why this wasn't just the new Carbon, because there are two Thunderbolt 3 ports on the side, a 3.5 millimeter audio jack, but there's no USB Type A, which is very. It's probably the first ThinkPad. Not including the Fold, because that's obviously a different product, a different type of product. Probably the first ThinkPad that doesn't have USB Type A, and that's probably a pretty big deal, right? So, you could see the screen here. This is there's no touch on this PC, but you see it has pretty narrow bezels on the sides. Speakers above the keyboard, which is pretty cool. Trackpad's clickable, which is nice. I'm kind of wondering where they made compromises. I also want to see it is a Core i7 1160G7. Yes, that is kind of awesome. Because that is what would previously have been. They're not calling it Y series or U series anymore, but this is what would previously be known as Y series. And the TDP has been jacked up since the last real Y series refresh we saw was Amber Lake with 8th gen. I don't think Ice Lake Y ever shipped. If you know of anything, let me know. But there was a couple Comet Lake Y PCs, which is really just like an Amber Lake refresh. Now, Tiger Lake, I'm going to call it Tiger Lake Y because it's easier, but the TDP has been jacked up, so it's there's a lot more power in the chip, although it's still fanless. And now we also have Iris Xe graphics. So you have a ton more power in the new low-power Tiger Lake chips. You have a lot more graphics power. You also have Thunderbolt 4, which means that you could plug in a couple monitors to this, or an external GPU if you want to. So this is going to be super, super, super interesting, at least to me. Right, so let's see what display they put in here. It is a 2K display, I believe. Yes, 2160 by 1350. So it's sort of like a, well, no, it's even more than 1080p plus, yeah. So, yeah, 2K is what they're calling it. That works fine. You want to call it QHD plus. Wait, no, don't call it that. I'm lost. Whatever. Anyway, that's the resolution of the display. So other than that, it's pretty much pretty standard ThinkPad stuff. We have the ThinkShutter privacy guard up here. There's an IR camera up there, 180 degree hinge, so you could just fold it totally flat if you'd like. But yeah, that keyboard being as shallow as it is, it's worth noting because it's much more shallow than other ThinkPads that I've used. Like I said, ThinkPad is tied to legacy. That's why we still have a track point here to control the pointer on the screen, because it's a staple. Every ThinkPad has it, again, except the X1 Fold, but every other ThinkPad just has it right in the keyboard there. Other companies use it, like HP and Dell. They use it in the EliteBooks and Latitudes, but only in certain models, and sometimes it's even optional for those models. So the fact that Lenovo still keeps this in every single ThinkPad that it puts out really shows you where it's at. So seeing this shallower keyboard is kind of cool because it's one thing that makes it feel a little more modern. The thing about ThinkPads in general is that they are great PCs. They're awesome PCs all around, but again, a lot of parts of them don't feel modern. So I am excited about this though, because I'm excited about the processor that's inside of it, and also as part of the project that I'm working on about testing out Intel Evo and comparing it to Apple's M1 processors. So that's about it, right? It's super thin and light, and now that we've taken a closer look at it, you can start to see why it didn't just take the place of the ThinkPad X1 Carbon, there is no USB Type A. It does not have the full 15-watt processor that we will find in the X1 Carbon and the X1 Yoga. We're seeing Lenovo start to play around a little bit, right? Because we're seeing Lakefield in the X1 Fold. We're seeing the ultra low power chips from Tiger Lake in the X1 Nano. So it's pretty cool, and it is super light. This is the kind of light where you just throw it in your bag and you forget that it's there. You know, like you're gonna have to double check your bag at some point. Like, wait, did I forget my laptop at home? No. Oh, okay, good. Yeah. So that's the X1 Nano. There it is. Right. You know, it's the type of thing you can hold with just two fingers pretty comfortably. It's you know, my hand's shaking a little bit. I know, but it's oh, that's just a balance thing. Again, 1.99 pounds. So yeah, it's a fanless design. It's cool, and like I said, it's also meant to be tough, like any ThinkPad. So you know, it can stand up to, you know, minor spills. Like it's not a rugged PC, but you know, it's can hand up extreme temperatures, dust, sand, stuff like that. All the mil-spec test. It's got 16 gigs of RAM in it. It should be a pretty powerful PC. Like I said, the new Tiger Lake, you know, we'll call them Y series processors. Like Intel doesn't call them that anymore. I know, but the new Tiger Lake processors are good, and like we saw that with Ice Lake last year too. When they introduced Ice Lake, they had Iris Plus graphics. And it was a big jump. Intel was finally taking integrated graphics seriously. And I feel like they were doing that to make up for a lack in the CPU a little bit. Like, the 10 nanometer was very limited with 10th gen. Remember, they only had it in U series and Y series. Y series never shipped. And everything else was 14 nanometers. H series, desktop S series, even the Y series. And by the way, they had Comet Lake U and Y also. So like you had to look when you bought a laptop to make sure that you were getting, you know, either Ice Lake or Comet Lake, whichever one you wanted, because they had pros and cons of each. With Tiger Lake, with 11th gen, it's just 10 nanometers for Y, U, so far H. We've seen what they're calling H35. So they're quad-core processors for super thin and light gaming PCs, because those 10 nanometer processors are more efficient, and but they're 35 watts instead of 45 watts. So what they are going to put out 45 watt chips that are octa-core, you know, the gaming beasts, and I assume that they're going to put 14 nanometers in that, because we know the desktop is going to be 14 nanometers as well. But there's a big expansion of 10 nanometers happening here, and for 11th gen, and this is going to be really cool. Like over, say, the last Y series processors that I've reviewed were Amber Lake and the HP Spectre Folio and the Acer Swift 7. And I think we're going to see a big jump here. So that's going to be pretty cool. So stay tuned, guys. I'm going to have a review in a few weeks. I'm Rich from NeoWin. Have a great night.